Did you know that you can buy a house for the price of a car? Mm-hmm, the whole house. Let that sink in. Well, before we get to that, let's take a little journey. Imagine you're at a car dealership and you see a luxury car, fully loaded, kind that might make heads turn, priced around $60,000. Now imagine we walk into a real estate office, we scan the listings, and we see a house for that same price. You'd probably think there's no way that this house could be livable, let alone in a decent area. Well, today I want to challenge that belief. A house for the price of a car isn't a fairy tale. It isn't a rundown shack waiting for the wrecking ball or a DIY nightmare requiring hundreds of thousands to renovate. It's a home that you can live in, and it's available in neighborhoods from cities and suburbs to rural areas and even near college campuses. And here's the thing. Most of us have no idea these houses exist. Society has taught us that a house is supposed to cost a lifetime. We're told to expect to pay as much as a third of our salary on a mortgage that stretches 3 long decades. But let me ask you a question. What if you didn't have to do that? What if you could buy a house outright or over several years and step away from the cycle of long-term debt that so often accompanies homeownership? Well, today I'm here to tell you that it's possible. So let's reimagine what homeownership means, not just for those who can afford 6 figures, but for anyone who's willing to look beyond the usual listings. Because a house for the price of a car isn't just a possibility, it's an opportunity waiting for those who are ready to seize it. Now, let's really clarify what we mean by a house for the price of a car. It's your typical house. It's made out of bricks, wood, maybe stone, I don't know, something sturdy, 3 little pigs stuff. It's not a tiny house. It's not a mobile home. It's not an RV. It's not that there's something wrong with that, but we're talking your classic home, the kind that most imagine living in and making memories. So, who is it that these houses most benefit? Who really stands to benefit from a house like this? Well, let's talk about your renters and aspiring homeowners. So, your singles, your couples, your families who are looking for a place to put down roots but can't quite get a toehold in today's market. Then there's your seniors. They're also looking for a permanent place to call home, but one that doesn't carry the threat of rent outpacing a fixed income. Now let's not forget about your young adults, the ones who are forced to live at home. Not because they want to, definitely not because their parents want them to, but because it's financially impossible not to. I want you to imagine the freedom, the independence that could come from buying an affordable house in your 20s. And of course, there's college students, especially those that have an entrepreneurial bent, buying a house near campus that they could live in or that they rent out to classmates. Well, that could be the first real step towards financial independence. And here's the really cool thing about these houses. The rent pays off the mortgage in a handful of years. Now, car owners, you know the feeling of paying off your 5 or 7-year note, the relief that comes from that. Imagine that same feeling where your mortgage is paid off in a similar time frame. So why is it that so few of us are looking at these houses? Well, I think it really boils down to perception. First, there's this persistent belief that affordable housing, well, that's just a euphemism for low-income housing, meaning housing that's substandard or in a neighborhood that carries a stigma. But that's just not the full picture. These houses are in cities big and small, in working class neighborhoods and middle class neighborhoods. So the idea that affordable housing equals rundown housing is a myth that really needs busting. Then there's a belief that anything under 6 figures is a diamond very much in the rough, requiring a full gut job. Now let's be honest, a house at this price, oh yeah, it's probably going to need a major repair. Roof, furnace, and certainly cosmetic repairs. But that's far from the 6-figure renovation that we often imagine. And then the biggest misconception is really the belief that buying a house automatically means taking on a 30-year mortgage. Well, let me ask you a question. Who made that rule? For so many of us, the idea of being able to buy an affordable house is premised on the statistics that we see. So when the Census Bureau, in their October 2024 report, says that the median price of a house is $437,000. Yes, I'm literally clutching my pearls here. Well, small wonder that we think a $60,000 house is off the table. So now on to the real question. Where, how can you find one of these houses? Well, let me tell you how I found mine. Back in 2016, my husband and I, we were looking for a house. We were recent empty nesters. And so we took to the internet. And we came across a 2-bedroom, 1-bath charmer. It's got a peach tree in the front yard, cute little backyard, a garage, kind of neighborhood where the kids, they still go trick-or-treating and play freeze tag. And the best part, the price, $35,000. Now, you might ask, how'd you find that house? Well, the same way most people do. I went online. But with one critical difference. Instead of allowing the search engines to just show me whatever they thought might interest me, which almost always meant top of the budget, I set the filters from lowest to highest. And highest was capped at $60,000. And that made all the difference. Once we moved in, we had to put in maybe another $20,000, $25,000 into it. There was a leaking roof, some cosmetic updates that we wanted to make. But we were able to do all of that while we lived in it. Now, I know some of you might say, well, hey, you were just lucky. And true that, lucky I have been. But you too can create your own lucky streak. Let's see how. So I went online December 6, 2024, to take a look and see what was out there. And this is a screenshot of a website I went on that said on that day, this is how many houses were available for sale. So there were approximately 400,000 houses that day available for sale. And of those, about 5,000 were priced between $20,000 and $60,000. So now what we'll do is take a look at some of these houses. So I've got one that's really among my favorites. I think it makes for a great starter home. I'm just messing with y'all.
That's a good one.
First up, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath duplex in the Northeast for $59,900. So you can see, it's got a bit of your standard look. Nice living room, kitchen, bathroom. Next up, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath single in the southern U.S., also about $60,000. Large home for a family. By the way, I'm not affiliated with any of these homes. Just something that the internet has available to anyone who looks. A 3,400 square foot multifamily in the northern US at $55,000. And finally, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath single in the Midwest for $55,000. So, I know in this day and age, a lot of folks feel like an affordable home, well, that's more mirage than reality. But I think the path is closer than you think. And after what you've heard today, don't you think so? But to get there, we have to be willing to look past outdated notions. I think a 6-figure mortgage is not what is necessarily required. I think you need the courage to look beyond the usual listings. So when you find yourself out there looking for a house, and your real estate agent or your mortgage broker tells you how much more you can afford, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take these 2 fingers. I want you to look them square in the eye. And I want you to do this. I challenge you to be brave, to do your research, and to take the initiative to at least explore a house for the price of a car. One that you can pay off outright, or in this many, in 10 years or less. Why? Because the American dream of being able to own a home is still out there, and I think it's closer than you think. Thank you.